Welcome back. Well, we heard about the government's plans for a revamp of the RMA before the break. Its support partner, the Maori Party, says it's cautious about the changes. Its co-leader, Te Ururoa Flavell, joins me now. Kia ora, Mr Flavell. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Morning, Rachel.
So, the Maori Party has indicated in the past that it was unhappy with the RMA. What's its position now?
As you said, a bit cautious on it. There's some good and not so good. In that one sense, the treaty clause, Clause 8, we thought may well have been taken out at the beginning of the discussions by National, because that was flagged by them at the time, and we're pleased through the work from Pita Sharples that that's been retained. We think there's been a missed opportunity, however, because the Land and Water Forum basically reported back that there was a good idea to have 50-50 co-governance at that level, and unfortunately we've come back to one iwi representative at the table, which is disappointing. On the good side, the kaitiakitanga clause, which is pretty major for us, has been retained and sort of upgraded from having regard for kaitiakitanga to recognise and provide for that clause in the legislation. And finally, I suppose the report mechanisms back from councils about how they have or have not involved iwi and Hapu in discussions around the RMA have been pretty important for us. So some good, some not so good feedback from the Minister.
And the reforms include quite extensive consultation with iwi, as you've touched on there, but actually leave you with no power to veto or essentially approve a decision. Does that frustrate you a little?
Well, it has been frustrating. I mean, one of the things that comes up constantly in Parliament is the lack of consultation or lack of regard for the views and opinions of iwi. We've, as I say, are relatively pleased with the retention of that Clause 8, the treaty clause, because that's the trigger in, and also in terms of the element of reporting, that's Section 32, I believe, of the Act, which allows, actually makes it almost compulsory for local authorities to report back around their engagement with iwi. So it's there, but it's not to the level that we really wanted. Nevertheless, there is ongoing discussion around this.
And are you going to push for change, or are you going to vote for this?
No, well, we're still in negotiations with the Minister. I mean, Pita, as the Minister of Māori Affairs, has been at high-level discussions with the Minister. We continue to talk through these issues with the Minister as best we can, and we'll reserve the right to vote accordingly. The one thing that I can tell you is that there's a fierce determination on our part that if iwi or Hapu rights are diminished in any way, then we'll obviously be voting against that legislation.
OK, let's stay with resources, and I'd like to move it, though, a little towards snapper. Where does the Maori Party stand on proposals, essentially, to lower that snapper quota?
I think we're waiting to see what the final outcome of the consultation process is in the next week or so. I believe it all closes up. I've had over 4,000 submissions. Sure, a lot of them are stock submissions to me and to my office about this, and I've had a couple of people come into my office to talk about it. At the moment, we understand the desire to maintain the fishery, and that the Minister, having discussed this issue with him, is determined to try and ensure that we do have a sustainable fishery. We know that certain things are locked in. One, the commercial fishery quota is set, the customary quota is set, and that leaves the recreational area to be considered. He, by his own admission, suggests that maybe going to 3 as a catch limit is a little bit tough and is not likely. I'd hope so. I hope that is not likely, because that's pretty much at the heart of the submissions that have been given to me over this short period of time.
Sunny Tao says that Māori need more than 3 fish. Can you explain to me why, and the cultural issues around this, particularly up in the north? Well, I mean, a fish is a source of food, and most of the people in the north, I would suggest to you, sort of head out for a fish, and 9 fish is not too bad a limit in order to not only feed themselves, but a part of that is also feeding the rest of the whānau, and sometimes that comes into as well the customary take. All of that is about looking after, on one hand, which is customary practice, looking after the resource by being able to place things like rāhui, a prohibition on a particular area if that's appropriate to allow the resource to rekindle. On the other hand, looking after the whānau. So those elements of our culture are important, and as Sunny suggested, there's still a need for
further consideration of that in the proposals.
The government, it seems, has a choice here. It can look after an electorate, or it can essentially protect the longevity of an industry and its export dollars that it brings. What should it do you think?
Well, that's the fine balance of being able to do both. I mean, you can take it both ways. One is basically everybody loses, and there's a drop in the number of either tonnage or catch, or limit bags, if you like, or that you redistribute or move the deck chairs, if you like, to allow, I suppose, perhaps, in this case, recreational fishers to not necessarily get their bag of 9, but 3 is way beyond what most people would suggest, most New Zealanders would suggest is a fair way to go. Some might say that, yes, recreational fishers can take some responsibility for this, but so too can commercial fisheries, in the sense that there's well-documented evidence to suggest that, you know, through net fishing, seine fishing and so on, that there's a fair lot of wastage in the catch, and therefore everybody shares in that, and I suppose sharing the responsibility to protect the fishery. At the end of the day, the protection of the fishery must be the priority.
Okay, thank you, Te Ururoa Flavell.